Hello everyone, Dick here. Today I'm riding the 2023 Honda Transalp. The Honda Transalp is a 755cc liquid-cooled 8-valve parallel twin. It puts out 91 brake horsepower with a max torque of 55 foot-pounds or 72 newton meters. Top speed is 135 miles an hour. That is set within a tubular steel diamond frame. Fuel capacity is 16.9 liters. It has a seat height of 850 millimeters, which is just shy of 33.5 inches. Front suspension is 41mm upside-down Showa forks. Those are non-adjustable. Rear suspension is a single shock with preload adjustment. Front brake is two 310mm discs with twin-piston calipers and ABS, provided by Nissan. The rear brake is also a Nissan 256mm disc with a single piston caliper and ABS. The front tire is 21 inches, the rear tire is 18 inches. It weighs 208 kilograms. Suggested retail price is £9,500 here in the UK. As a past owner of 3 Transalps and a current owner of a 2001 Transalp 650, I have been cautiously excited to ride this bike, but I have been disappointed in the past, so I will not be blinded by the marketing monkeys hooting and hollering and throwing shit at us from their enclosure. I'm a huge fan of the CB500X, which in my eyes is and has been the natural successor to the Transalp since its debut in 2016. If Honda can build off of that gem and not be distracted by its more successful competitors in this class of motorcycle, we may just have something here worth talking about. As always, I have avoided any press and chatter about the bike I'm about to test ride, so strap in for an unfiltered take on Honda's latest crack at sport touring adventure. Before we get out on the road, let me share a few thoughts I had while waiting for my scheduled demo appointment. I was able to steal a moment alone with the bike and get a good look. And just like you, loyal viewers, I am not whisked away to Spain for launch events or granted long-term loans of new bottles to ride in exchange for limp dick gushing sales pitches. I am perpetually on the hunt for my next bike. And as a pleb consumer, I am granted a mere hour demo ride to determine whether or not I want to plunk my hard-earned cash on the barrelhead for the bike in question. Not a lot of time to be sure, but the UK is better than other countries in actually offering demos at all. Luckily for me, and for you, my faithful compatriots, I'm a quick judge of character, and an hour is all we need to get to know this new bike. What first hit me was the striking similarity to the CB500X. I'm happy to see Honda carrying over its current design language to the Transalp. I'm sure that some may think it is a bit bland to look at, but aren't we all in some respect? This is not to say there aren't design cues from previous Transalps. Most apparent is the massive, mostly useless rear rack, as well as how the front fairing flows into the line of the petrol tank's profile. I was happy to see a 21-inch front wheel and happy to see spokes, a good start at playing the ADV game. Inverted forks, a nice touch, but it limits the ability to raise the fender as the shields are integrated. And then Honda goes and scores an own goal when we see how low-slung the exhaust is at the rear. But it's road-oriented, some will say. Every Transalp ever was road-oriented, but everyone that came before had a high exhaust. I'm not impressed. If we backtrack along the exhaust, we can find the massive cat, which Honda has managed to minimize much better than the other Japanese attempts, but it is very exposed for an ADV bike. We can also see that there are no frame rails to protect the undercarriage of the bike. The original Transalps had crappy, heavy frames, but what can be said for them is that they protected the underbelly effectively. Speaking of underbelly, what in the flying is this dingleberry? It seems to be a sacrificial sump to protect the catalytic converter. Whatever it is, it's vulnerable and ugly, as is this shifter rod. I was surprised at the height and reach of the risers, which we will address later in the ride. I was also concerned with the lack of center stand, or any possible place to mount one. I looked for a possible mounting position and only found 2 eyelets under the rear shock mount. Upon closer inspection, it looks as if these are for lowering the linkage for shorter riders. The Honda rep couldn't tell me one way or the other. I was already getting mixed signals, but the ride is what's paramount, so let's get to it. Hello everybody, it's Dick here. At long last, I'm on the Transalp 750, the new iteration of this name. I think they misnamed it off the bat. They can name their bikes whatever they want, but it really is a CB750X. While I was waiting to get on it, it was parked up next to a 2023 CB500X, and they're indistinguishable in some ways. My biggest fear of getting on this, being an owner of an earlier Transalp, is that Transalps were traditionally V-twins. And this being a parallel twin, again, makes it more in line with a CB500X than an earlier Transalp. I don't want to be negative from the off because there are things they've done very sympathetic to the earlier Transalps. It's kind of a quasi-Transalp. It's using the design language of current Hondas, stealing a couple of things from their competitors, i.e. this windshield a la 700 Tenere. But there are things like the rear rack, the tank almost. It's reminiscent, especially how the cowls come and hug it. There is something familiar about this. I cannot forgive the low exhaust. The sales pitch is that this is the road-oriented adventure sport tourer. But if you look at the old Transalps, that was the same thing. They were road-oriented, and despite them being road-oriented, they had a high exhaust. I also don't like how the engine's hanging off the bottom of this frame, because on the old Transalps, I mean, one of the weakest features was the frame. However, it was protective of the engine. The frame rails went below the engine, so even if you didn't have a bash guard, your engine was protected. This thing is exposed, and I'm sure they're gonna sell some sort of elaborate protection, because the catalytic converter is hanging low, and for some reason, I think the oil sump is this kind of teardrop shape that goes down lower than the catalytic converter. It's confusing to look at. Sitting on it, it's familiar too. The geometry, oh, did you see that? I'm shaking my hands, and that's causing this jitteriness. This is more technologically advanced than any Transalp you'll find. It's got 4.5, 5 if you include your user specified mode. It's got modes. It's got this whole Game Boy situation over here, like the Africa Twin. It's got a nice sound. The engine off the bat reminds me, ooh, and a little suspension dive there. The engine off the bat reminds me a lot of the Tenere, of the Yamahas. I think that the initial impression, the takeaway on this, is that this is not the NC750 engine. This is its own punchier engine. It has an electronic throttle, which is obviously why they can offer modes. I'm in standard mode, and even in standard mode, this thing seems hyperactive. It's very punchy at the throttle, and it's very sensitive at the throttle, even in standard mode. Well, while I'm at the stoplight, you can see it's as high as my other Transalp, so balls in my feet. Not terribly high. Seat, I think, is 850 millimeters. I have a 30-inch inseam, so it's not terribly high for me. It's not taller than the old Transalp, so there's something familiar about it. It's a bit taller. It's a bit taller than the CB500X. Look at this guy. England doesn't have a lot of sun, but when it's sunny, it's really nice. More cabriolets, more convertibles per capita than any other country in the world. And this is why. Nice little distraction. So the modes, I think you can change on the fly. I'm in rain mode now. You come off the throttle to do it. It's funny. It's like the engine's taking a hit for you. It's like taking a punch. It still wants to be hyperactive, but it can't. What are you doing? Oh, the joys of riding in fucking London. Engine braking is good. I'm really impressed with the engine in this short time I've been on it. I've been on it maybe 10 minutes. And the fueling isn't perfect. It kind of reminds me of early FTRs in the jerkiness of the fueling. But the engine itself, the responsiveness of the engine, and it's got a nice sound, even though the exhaust is low. Why am I sitting in traffic? Let's see about filtering. Dual discs on the front, 21-inch front wheel. Got a nice clunky transmission. Just kind of drops into place like a Japanese transmission should. Seat's a little hard. Damn it. Fucking one-way system around this town. I'm already getting a little pain in my ass. There is a threat of vibrations on this. Through town here, I can't get up to the RPM that I experienced it earlier, but around 3,000 RPM, there is noticeable high frequency vibration in the handlebars and at the foot pegs. Nothing in the seat as yet, and I haven't been able to get it over 4,000 RPM. The throttle on the off is a lot tamer if you do this stop-start stuff in second gear. The windshield is non-adjustable. Come on, man. The horn button is tiny. I guess start and stop stuff in second gear needs a little more juice. The horn button is tiny for a Honda, but I guess they have to do that to put this fucking Game Boy thing on here, that if I owned this, I'd never use it. Oh, there was just an ABS blinky light on the dash there. I don't know why that happened. I wasn't using the brakes at the moment. Showa inverted forks. Suspension is fine. It's cushy, bouncy. Not bottoming out with my fucking heavy ass doing this. Standing up was comfortable. Yeah. Proportions are right. The proportions are perfect. I'm not a fan of, I'm in rain mode and I'm still getting, that's just very little input. It's funny how the throttle response is supposed to be dulled in rain mode, but all I'm getting is more movement in the throttle before it engages. It doesn't seem to be deadening the throttle response. It just seems to be postponing it. Gravel. What does gravel do? Oh, so I've turned the ABS off. Throttle response is 3/4. I don't know what P means, and I don't know what EB means. There's like all this information up here, and there's tabs there's tabs on it like a spreadsheet. So you got to use the Game Boy to get through the spreadsheet. Oh, they closed the roads. They've closed the roads. Permit holders. Huh. User mode, sport mode. There's no postponing of the acceleration. That's good. I like that. Sport mode is good, but it gets me up to those. It gets me up to those RPMs very, very quickly that I wasn't able to get up to in standard and rain mode. And I'm at 3,000 RPM right now, and I got a lot of vibration in the handlebars, right in my grips, and in my foot pegs. Oh, and it's very, very jerky on the throttle. You have to be very, very controlled. There's very little allowance on that throttle hand. But yeah, that's cool. I like that. Oh, rear brake is interesting. It's very firm. It's very firm, but it doesn't feel like it locks up. It gives you like a firm assurance. Yeah. I know on my other Transalp, the brake is splashy. I always thought the brake felt a little splashy. It is 23 years old. But you can rest on that lever, where this one, it's good. Good brakes. Dual discs. What else can I say? Getting that, ooh, whoa, 4,000 RPM. Those foot peg vibrations go right up to my balls. I don't know how effective this windshield is. I feel like a lot of wind is coming around it. The problem with coming to Richmond Park on the weekend are these lycra-clad cyclists who think that they own the place. I am also a lycra-clad cyclist when I ride my bicycle. However, I realize that I'm even more vulnerable than riding a motorcycle. I don't know how putting on lycra and riding a 15-pound carbon fiber bicycle gives them the confidence that they're invincible against larger vehicles or machines, or that their entitlement is somehow going to shield them from death, or their superiority is going to resurrect them to tell us that we were wrong when we rolled over them because they cut us off or rode too close on our bumper. I thought coming out to Richmond Park would give me a little breathing room compared to the roads around here, but it's as congested, if not more congested, than everywhere else in the city. I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but these vibrations are as high frequency and as annoying as the ones I experienced on the Triumph Rally 900. The wind is just going around this windshield, so it's not really doing anything other than keeping it off my chest. It's going right into my face. I'm trying. 2, neutral, first gear, got it. That was annoying. See ya. I couldn't find first gear. It was just kind of stuck in limbo. It's a very easy motorcycle to ride. If you can control the throttle, it's a very easy motorbike to ride. Here's this tab. I don't know if you can see it as I flip through the spreadsheets. fuel consumption, distance, average fuel consumption, battery voltage, date. A lot of redundancies, actually. I don't know why there's 4 fucking tabs. Anyway. It's funny, I'm just riding around now and it's very familiar. It's a very comfortable motorcycle. It's got oodles of power with the 750 engine, and it can be very aggressive if you need it to be. And especially with that, oh, I'm still in sport mode. Especially with that sport mode. Hello, you fucking prick. Calm down, Dick. Didn't even look f***ing right in the roundabout. Just pulled out. Couldn't find the horn. Didn't think that would be an issue on a Honda. Another one of my congested London demos. I know how everyone loves them so much. Check your mirrors next time. The bike feels very familiar. It feels well proportioned for an average sized adult male. The suspension stock seems very adequate and compliant for my weight, which is heavier than it should be. The seat's a little hard. The weight is good. "72 Newton meters of torque," which isn't terribly high, but it feels very torquey. I do really like this engine. The engine is the takeaway. It's not as vibey as the Triumph, though I haven't been at sustained RPM. I'm wondering what it'll be like out on the highway. When you're at sustained RPM, the handlebars buzz pretty high frequency. But again, this bike has 289 miles on it. So as the engine beds in, I'm sure it'll get smoother. There's definitely a lot of power here that I'm not utilizing at the moment. You can feel it. It's almost like you can measure the potential energy of it. If you ignore the vulnerability of some of the sensitive parts on the undercarriage, this thing is a very... I forgot what I was going to say, because when I went up that... I'm still in sport mode. Standard. When I went up that speed bump, that's how sensitive that throttle is. I jerked forward. I'd be interested to see how easily controllable this twitchy throttle is off-road. This is not as rally inspired as the Tenere, even though the Tenere is its direct competitor. I think it's probably closer in spirit to the V-Strom, but it's a higher class V-Strom. I think it's actually a bit more refined than the BMW 750 GS. The BMW, I'm always surprised at how industrial it feels. it's BMW is sold as kind of a premium high-end brand, but when you get close to one or you ride one, it's a bit raw and rough around the edges. So I'm flat-footed on my left foot, and my foot is up on the brake, as we're taught here in the UK, and it's still nearly vertical. Engine braking is exquisite. That engine braking is excellent. Oh, I like this engine. It's not a V-twin, but it's really well tuned. If they could just solve that twitchy throttle. It's funny, it's reminiscent of the first generation Indian FTRs in how jerky that throttle is. But I think as I'm getting used to the bike, as I'm getting used to controlling the bike, I'm learning how subtle I need to be. Though I have been caught off guard on these speed bumps, and I would be caught off guard taking this off-road. It doesn't feel particularly heavy, or I should say no heavier than my Transalp. But again, something like this, I'd rather be on my CRF or my CT going off-road. Fire roads, the occasional track you find, but anything technical, I wouldn't want to lift it up. And you got to add a lot of crash protection, more than the original Transalp. So all that crash protection will add weight, and that's gonna be an issue picking it up. I don't know, they lost a trick in not having an adjustable windshield, but I can't reach it anyway. It's way out there. The bike is very far out ahead of you. It's like the Africa Twin in that respect, and how far out in front of you that cockpit is. And it has the early CB500X issue where all these kind of blanking panels where nothing's really happening. It's just hiding wires. It doesn't seem like an elegant solution. It's nice, a bit of filtering. It's a CB700X, and that's really what it should be called. I don't know how much mileage they're going to get off of extra sales by calling it a Transalp. Maybe because the CB500X is one of those sleeper perfect bikes that only the couriers and the dispatch riders understand. 9,499 pounds. If the dealerships honor those suggested retail prices in this day and age of what motorcycles are going for and motor vehicles are going for, I'd say for this bike, that's a bargain. There we go. Good old high-end filtering. Very fluid. It's easily maneuverable. At least they've memorialized motorcycles in the bus lane out here. They're constraining it everywhere else in this fucking city. All right, let's get on a motorway. It's not saying much because these days motorways are These days motorways are constrained as the cities in terms of speed limits, but we'll see if I can get it up to speed, or at least some sustained RPMs to see if that vibration would be an issue. Come on, man. What is going on here? All right, let's get it out on the motorway. Oh, it's cosmic. Let's get out of the motorway. It's fucking slower than the roads I've been on in the city. Oh my God. I could say you can't write this shit, but you can definitely write this shit. You can set your watch to it. I'm always reluctant to take a city demo because of this very reason, because you can't ever get to those peak RPMs or really see how a bike performs. You can see how a bike maneuvers in slow speeds. You can see how well it's balanced. I'm at 3,500 RPM and that vibration is back in my handlebars. Not so much, oh, there it goes, 3,200 RPM maybe. It redlines at 10,000 RPM. I think peak is 5,500 if I'm not mistaken. It might be 7,500, I'll have to check. I am up on an elevated highway here. I'm getting lots of crosswinds. I'm only going 35 miles an hour, but I'm still very stable. I'm getting a lot of wind buffeting around this windshield into my face, though it's not turbulent yet. Yeah, 3,000 RPM vibrations in the handlebars, which is surprising considering how fat this handlebar is and how tall. Well, I guess maybe it's the length of those risers. Another fucking June bug. I guess the length of those risers and the width of the handlebars is giving me more leverage that's promoting this vibration. We go from 40 to national speed limit in about 25 yards. All right, that's good. Let's see what we can do. I'm already in fifth gear. Why am I in fifth gear? Because of the vibrations. 3,500, 3,800 RPM. 6,000 RPM. Wow, that's nice. 6,000 or 6,200 RPM. Ooh, that's weird. Lots of vibration. And the front end is off-weighted so much. The front end off-weighted so much when I accelerated that I got a little bit of splashy steering. Lots and lots and lots of vibration. 5,500 RPM. I'm in fifth gear now. 4,200 RPM. Vibration hasn't gone away. It's only in the handlebars, mostly the throttle hand. Otherwise, it's very comfortable at speed. It's extremely comfortable at speed, other than that vibration. Sixth gear. Oh, there's a sixth gear. There's a sixth gear. I thought maybe dropping the RPMs would fix the vibration. It just lowered the frequency, but it's still very noticeable. It's comfortable here because the turbulence in my helmet is distracting me from that vibration in my hand. It's funny, at the announcement, a lot of people said it was disappointing that it didn't have a cruise control, and I said, you know, why would you possibly put a cruise control on a Transalp? But now, being on it with all of the electronics and the modes and the jerkiness of the throttle, I think that's a missed opportunity, and that's saying something for how I feel about cruise control. But I found myself out there looking for a cruise control button because of all of the modes and the electronic throttle. I'm not a fan of the electronic throttle, I should say. I will say that this seat is uncomfortable, especially over time. I'm getting a lot of concentrated pain right on my glutes. Can I filter through here? Oh no, that guy's gonna fucking try and... I could fit through here, but that front car has its indicator on. It's going to cut across these two lanes, so let's avoid an incident. I don't like these kind of Batman-y, Japanese-y, angry mirrors. And I'll say, this will be the first thing that goes when it falls. I do like the high indicators though, that's something new. They're not integrated into the side panels like the original Transalp. And they are the new stock bin ones, which are LED. I like the trickle down technology that we're getting. We're getting a bit more value. It's very Honda in its philosophy. Develop your high-end stuff and then trickle it down to your mid and lower range items. I do like that philosophy, and this is a payoff for that. This is an awkward position. This passing light thing. And it's a vulnerable switch. Rain mode on the highway. It's funny, it's just like the engine is just taking a lot of that force. There's a lot of vibration down between my legs now. I can attribute the vibrations to the mode I'm in. Whatever power management this electronics are doing is absorbing the power. And that absorption is almost like an anti-vibration plate in a Royal Enfield single. You gotta put that power somewhere. It's gotta dissipate somewhere. And I find that in sport mode, the vibrations are the least because all of that power is available at the throttle. And as you retard the power management, or as you increase the power management, those vibrations increase, and it feels like the bike is kind of taking it for the team. I don't know if that's good. I don't think that's good. I think I've experienced better power management that hasn't sacrificed comfort. I just got a service light up here. It must be the break-in. Interesting. 300 mile or a year from release. So although the throttle is twitchiest in sport mode, the vibrations are reduced. So if you can handle that extra raw power, then you'll have a more comfortable ride. I think the power management on the Tracer 900 is better. There is no power management on the Tracer 700. So it's a moot point. I don't think this needs power management. I don't think this needs mode. I think they should have just dialed it in and left well enough alone. I think the increased tech is a detractor on this bike. I will say Honda again has made a bike in a class of its own. Now that should not be confused with the class leading bike. It's not a class leader. I don't think this is in the same realm of the Tenere. I think it's closer to a Tracer 900. It's more attractive than the Tracer 900. It's cheaper than the Tracer 900. I think the Tracer 900 has a better power management system. So it's like the CB500X. You can't compare it to its competitors. It's much better than a V-Strom. It's not as technically proficient or high performance as a Tenere. Legendary? I think I'll let time be the judge of that. Oh, I should say there's no center stand, and I don't know where you'd put one. If you like that video, and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.